Selling today often requires that you get your customers to want to do something different. In order to accomplish that, you need a distinct point of view. Convincing customers you have something different to offer is getting more and more difficult. In fact, the company that gets paid to differentiate, Gartner Group, can't even differentiate anymore. Look at this quote. It doesn't matter what product you buy, most products are now good enough to serve the majority of users most of the time. Now you know you have a differentiation challenge. These two numbers from Forrester Research will tell you how you can break through a marketplace like we just looked at. 65 and 35. 65% of executives surveyed by Forrester Research said they will purchase from the company that establishes the buying vision. The other 35% of executives said they'll put all the vendors into a bake-off in order to make their choice. 65% is a big number. So the question really becomes, what does it mean to establish the buying vision so that you can win at least 65% of the time and put yourself on a positive trajectory to win the 35% of the bake-offs? Establishing the buying vision means you're in conversations on the left-hand side of the customer buying cycle. It means you're in the business of helping customers see why they need to change instead of constantly making arguments for why you. You also need to talk to customers about their desired outcomes and how those outcomes are at risk and how you can help fix that, instead of simply talking about your offerings and how they're better than the competition. You need to ultimately sell the problem first to establish a buying vision versus selling the product, which is really just simply part of the bake-off. 65% of customers admit they will purchase from the company that establishes the buying vision. But most of your messages, your tools, and your sales training are for the bake-off side of the buying cycle. Something needs to give. So ask yourself, how confident are you that your salespeople have the right messages and the right skills to get the prospect to care enough to do something different and establish the buying vision? Creating a buying vision, while difficult, is something you can actually do in your organization on purpose. Here's what's going on in the marketplace. We're seeing a lot more action. More sales calls are taking place. However, that doesn't mean that more deals are getting done. These customers aren't necessarily choosing you or the competitors. In increasing numbers, they're choosing a third path called the status quo, or do nothing. When we ask companies what they're measuring, we're hearing that they're measuring the end of their pipeline and determining that 20 to 60% of so-called qualified deals are falling into this status quo, do nothing, no decision category. Sales Benchmarking Index, a company that looks at thousands of other companies, put that number at 58% of deals going to status quo or no decision. At a recent conference, a software company came up to me when I shared these statistics and said, really, we're seeing 80% of the deals that we lose going to no decision. Essentially, what we're seeing is that you go into a sales opportunity thinking it's a legitimate competitive bake-off and that somebody's going to make a decision at the end, but instead, the prospects and customers you're meeting with are simply determining if they need to do anything different at all. And apparently, companies are having a hard time convincing them they need to change from the status quo. Companies simply don't see enough reason to do something different than they're already doing today. Building a buying vision requires you to change this conversation. Here's why it's critical that you rethink your conversations with customers now. Because if you want to grow at the pace you want to grow at, simply talking about yourself and your features and your benefits in the competitive bake-off is not going to get you there. Let's look at these numbers. If 6 out of 10 deals is going to status quo or no decision or do nothing, that leaves 4 out of 10 deals for you to win or lose. Let's give you 2.5 of those 4 deals and your competitors 1.5. If you want to grow as fast as your company wants you to grow, is your best opportunity to get one of these competitive deals and make it yours? Or is it possible that it's more important to go after these status quo, no decision, do nothing customers who considered doing something different but decided to hold out? And what if you could make 1, 2, or 3 of those yours? But you're going to have to change your approach. You're going to have to change your conversation in order to get customers to do something different. You're going to have to think of your real competitor as the status quo and your need to loosen that in order to create more opportunities. So to beat the status quo, which can include, hey, we'll do it ourselves, we'll do it inside, or can include an incumbent competitor, you need to create and deliver a whole new kind of conversation. You need to step back from the bake-off and rise above the spec wars with a new set of messages, selling tools, and sales training. What you have to do is, in effect, make the status quo unsafe. And then you need to show them how to move from unsafe to a new safe, which is your solution. If you want to turn these prospects into legitimate opportunities or get them to reconsider the incumbent, the first thing you need to do is you need to challenge their current assumptions about their status quo. You need to show them the threats, the risks, the challenges, or missed opportunities in their market, and show them where these threats, risks, and challenges are putting their status quo in an unsafe position. But you have to be willing to challenge those assumptions first, or you won't loosen their commitment to their current situation. Then you need to take each pain, threat, risk, and challenge and turn it into a new set of needs, the new buying requirements, the new purchasing checklist that they need to consider. And those new needs, which eliminate those pains, threats, risks, problems, and challenges, need to point directly to the strengths of your programs, your services, your solutions. It's a guided discussion that will change the entire trajectory of the selling conversation. It's a different kind of story, both in the way that you build it and in the way that you tell it. It's required to change the customer conversation from a bake-off to a buying vision. In order to get your customer conversations to the place where you're building a buying vision as opposed to simply participating in the bake-off, you need to take a systems approach. The systems approach requires that you develop differentiated, customer-focused, field-ready messages, and then deploy those messages in non-traditional tools that the field will actually use to break through at each part of the buying cycle. And then you need to train your salespeople to deliver those messages with skills for remarkable, compelling, both online and offline conversations. Only corporate visions can give you this integrated approach across marketing and sales and consulting and training to create a customer conversation system in order to help you build a buying vision and not suffer the indignity of a bake-off. As proof, let me tell you about our client ADP. They're a world-class company delivering a range of back-office financial and employee management services and technologies. They implemented the approach we just talked about and wanted to test it in a couple regions. So they deployed their new messaging content and skills and measured the impact. They were able to identify 145 deals that closed during the pilot. But what makes it the most interesting is that they deliberately applied the approach to those deals that they had identified as no decision or status quo in their CRM system. So of these 145 deals, in fact, 115 were reignited. They had been previously stalled or declared dead inside the CRM system and had been brought back to life as new deals. This resulted in millions of dollars of incremental business in just 90 days after the launch of this approach. And this was a 10x return on the entire investment of the program. So are your customer conversations working in all three areas? Do you have the right customer-focused messages that are ready for the field to use? Are these available in tools that actually work across the buying cycle the way salespeople work? And do your salespeople have the skills to deliver a differentiated conversation, whether they're on the phone, over the web, or in person? The best way to learn more about Corporate Vision's customer conversation system is to attend one of our executive briefing sessions. Check out our events calendar and find out where the next executive briefing session is taking place. Or, if you're ready to talk, call us or email us, and a knowledgeable, friendly person will be happy to answer your questions and set you up with the appropriate account manager who can discuss your customer conversation options for you right now.